Let me admit from the get-go, I went into this knowing I wouldn't like it. Stop trying to get me to be sympathetic towards a villain and excuse their bad behavior. And the track record of these live-action movies haven't been that great. But I had heard some great positive reviews, and I waited. But then I've relented. But really, was it worth the wait? Stay tuned for PopCon's review of Cruella on PopCon Goes to the Movies. Welcome back to PopCon, a salute to all pop culture, but mostly the 80s. I'm your host, Victor, and today we're actually expanding outside of the greatest decade, the 80s, and we're talking about a pop culture icon that has really gone through many, many decades, actually from the 60s all the way through the present. We're reviewing the current pop culture icon in the newest film incarnation, Disney's Cruella, starring two Emmas. If you're new to the channel, thanks for being here. We cover all things pop culture with a heavy dose of the 80s, but we'll probably touch on something you like, so please push that subscribe button. You'll always know when PopCon has something to offer you. For those of you returning, please remember to like and comment and share for like ever. So thank you all for your support. This is Cruella de Vil, as seen in the 1956 book by Dodie Smith. A little bit younger, a little bit softer, a little bit more elegant. This is the concept art done by Mark Davis for the Disney Company, the live-action reference material the animators used, and the final, slightly more grotesque version of our famous villain, Cruella de Vil, in the 1961 animated classic. Once again relevant, I'm here to tell you if her infamy still exists, or has her wickedness been diluted. Once again, I should tell you, I knew I shouldn't like this movie. Am I a Disney purist when it comes to animated films? Absolutely. Do I think the remakes are necessary? No. Do I like any of them? Absolutely. Mulan is actually a great movie I really enjoyed. So out of the many of them, that was great. But this isn't a remake. And you have to go into it knowing that this is not a remake. And that's very important. It's not like Lion King, which was a remake of Lion King, just to show you how awesome photorealistic characters could be. But there was no emotion in those animals' faces. So I wasn't sure what to think, but I knew it was different. But I still wasn't sold. And to tell you a little secret, sometime in the 1990s, throughout that decade, I actually was very close to Cruella. Yes, I lived in Florida, and I actually worked with her almost every day. So I do feel justified, or at least qualified, to give a good review of this film. I'm also somebody who doesn't mind spoilers. Seriously, I'm not those that gets upset if I spoil the movie. Here's why. I don't want to go in with really high expectations and then just to be dashed. So I gather a lot of information if it's a film that I question. If it's one that I'm not too sure about going, I start to gather little tidbits just to make sure it's something I want to go to. And this was that case. And I got a lot of information ready to go. And when I finally relented, when I finally said, let's go see the movie, I quickly realized I didn't have enough information to go on. I knew barely half of what I thought I was going into. And to be honest, I couldn't have made an accurate judgment without seeing this film, because it was certainly a movie that was not following the model of any of the other Disney interpretations, which, by the way, was a breath of fresh air. I was prepared for the backstory that gave Cruella a sympathetic tone, and we'd find the reason why she was the way she was. But to my surprise, that motivation was really almost non-existent. They really didn't play on the trope too heavily. And as a matter of fact, while watching it, I really thought of it more as a family-friendly Disney version of The Joker. And I know that comparison's been made, but I honestly thought of it during the film. And I'm glad I did, because it gave it gravitas and depth. This was not a complex story to follow, but it was about a complex character that was played very well by Emma Stone, giving some motivation from her youth, but not solely using that motivation of being part of or witnessing or blaming herself for any tragedy. As a matter of fact, she played it more like, and she even says, about being born to be bad. And right there, I knew I liked it. And there were so many great nods and details and story arcs, Easter eggs if you can, that correlate this film with the animated one, that I started to immediately forgive this film even existed and really enjoyed it much more, knowing that it wasn't completely rewriting the story I knew. To be fair, I have a critique. The CGI dogs. In a film like this, there wasn't a lot of need for special effects, but the dogs were quite obviously CGI and sometimes distracting, especially because there had been earlier movies using the dogs, and for the life of me, couldn't fathom why they didn't use more canines and canine trainers on set to do some of these things the dogs did. I know they were all super adorable, and I'm sure they used live action ones for a lot of it, but sometimes during the film you would notice the silliness. Anyone who knows a dog knows what a dog does and what it looks like, so sometimes you knew it was out of the ordinary, but it wasn't enough of a distraction to take you out of the movie, so that was good. We're not talking silly CGI like the Phantom Menace. But terrible that was. But no, it was obvious, but again, it didn't distract. The correlation or the relationship between these characters, Horace, Jasper, Anita, or Roger, was so fantastic. Having them interact that way was so believable that I actually believed they were the same characters or could be the same characters from the animated film. So they kept that relationship very, very close to what I remember. All right, the inclusion of Anita and Roger, the couple from the original film, surprised me, and I loved seeing them in the film. Even if Roger was shoehorned in, kind of, it was great, and I'd see Kay Van Novak in anything, even if it's not his vampire character from What We Do in the Shadows. So then there was, of course, these Easter eggs that really touches that they brought to and from this film that were relatable to the original, again, made me believe that this was the same character, the same storyline. So that was awesome. Then there was a new character, Artie. Artie ran a dress shop or a clothing store, and this was a great addition. Actually, wish we had more of him. He was very underutilized, and you kind of wish that somehow he could be put into the 1961 film. His Ziggy Stardust look was perfect for the time period. That wig was excellent. As a matter of fact, speaking of that wig, the time period is the 70s, and I really felt like I was there. So they did a great job, even if the costume designer and the art direction did sort of give it that modern gleam just a little bit, or maybe some things were anachronistic, but it didn't take me out. I knew it was the 70s, and I liked it, along with a really, really great soundtrack that was fun, helped the story along. But back to those characters, Artie fit right in with Horace and Jasper as another one of our denizens of supporting characters. Something that is so incredibly stellar is the art direction, and set direction's pretty good too, but the costumes. What should get an Academy Award for this are just simply the costumes used by Cruella to upstage the real villain, the Baroness, played by Emma Thompson. Whether it's the Sergeant Pepper look, or whether it's the future pantsuit, or possibly the kind of pre-Dalmatian spots. Definitely the garbage train, and finally the true Revenge of the Nerds moment of this film. You'll get it if you see it when she completely upstages the Baroness with this kind of rave grunge look. All of these fashions are iconic. They should live on. They were beautifully done and really took the movie to take another step up. So that was really, really thrilling. Let's talk the character performances. Everyone did a fantastic job, but the stellar performance to me was Emma Thompson. This experienced actress really felt natural. I believed her, and she took me away. I believed her, and I didn't like her. She truly was the villain of this film. Let's speak of Cruella, though. Emma Stone did a great job, sometimes feeling like she channeled Cruella de Vil, the one that we all know and remember. Going through a few different kind of like sections or chapters in her life, I felt the maddening, crazy-eyed person coming out of Emma Stone. So I saw and believed what I knew in that time was Cruella de Vil, but also believed that she would become, in a few more years, the Cruella that we knew. So it was neat to see it in this point in the 70s, knowing that she would just continue this descent or spiral of madness to become the Cruella that was even crazier, that was even worse than she is in this film. So you see that realism of an evolution, of an ascension, of psychosis, of a genius. I do want to take a moment to point out that they do really try and connect in some ways to the original 1961 films, and stuff you may not notice, like the correlation of Roger actually being a songwriter and his apartment being decorated just like it was in the film. And you see that after Perdita and Pongo, the Dalmatian puppies, may grow up, we can see the future of this story. So the lines that are said in the film, the depictions, are still something I will give high praise about. Now, something I will kind of give it a little tick off for is what a lot of modern movies do these days, which is be just a hair too long. But it is not this movie's fault. It is not its downfall at all. It has really no downfall. It's just that movies today have a false ending, and they make you feel like, oh, this is the end, this is the climax, just to find out there's a surprise, a third act. So you're still in for another ride for that full conclusion, which was fine. It really summed up the film at the end. You needed that. But sometimes they do take it to a point that's very long. So that's the only other critique besides the CGI. Overall, this film is really good, and I was surprised. Once again, it is just more of the story. It is a prequel. It's before what we know. You can tell that it could get to what we know, so that was great. And they didn't diminish the wickedness that Cruella de Vil does have, or eventually will be. It's there. And there's so many great scenes, so many great moments. And it is family friendly in a way, but still, it's got its darkness. And if you do want to liken this to the Glenn Close live action versions only, that's all right. There isn't a total connect because there are some details that may not transcend. I think this one transcends more to the animated than it does to the Glenn Close. But the role Emma Stone plays as Cruella and the Glenn Close Cruella, they're actually more related than you could possibly imagine. You could actually believe that Emma Stone's Cruella could become the beautiful, masterful, crazy Cruella portrayed by Glenn Close in just a few more years. So that relationship is there, and if you just keep it into that sense, they go together really well. If you totally believe that 102 Dalmatians doesn't exist at all with Glenn Close, because that was a travesty. So with that put aside, I really recommend that you see Cruella. It is much better than I thought. Of all the Disney live-action reinterpretations, this is a film you may not want to miss. It's a lot of fun. And then right afterwards, watch the 1961 animated Walt Disney classic, 101 Dalmatians. Popcorn's going to give this 5 puppies. Right? Well, thanks for joining me. I really hope you liked the review. Maybe it inspired you to go see the film. We'll have a lot of other content like this. So once again, subscribe, and hope to see you again soon. Until next time.
Get away from her, you